It's just a different level of understanding of where your edge is. If you can feel those edges out and keep pushing them, you only get bigger because your energy is superhuman and it's way bigger than you think it is. And finding those edges and expanding them only makes you better. It gives you more confidence. Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started.
Okay, start this bitch.
I think I'm going to keep that, Allie. Let's start this bitch. I think that's perfect. Today's episode is different than all the other episodes. It's kind of an end of year wrap up, end of first season wrap up, end of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm still doing this wrap up. And Allie Farrow, who is now Allie Putnam, formerly from the Birth Kweens, is here because Allie is one of the best interviewers and she's had 3 years experience and she's fucking hilarious. So she's going to help us get through this episode because there's lots of questions and things that I don't know how to answer. So I'm going to let Allie ask me and then we'll answer and see how that goes. But welcome, Allie. Tell a little bit about where you are right now in your career.
Thank you. I paid her to say all those nice things about me, everyone. So don't believe a word of it.
Not very much, but a little.
I was a doula in San Diego for about 10 years and birth and postpartum. And I hosted the Birth Kweens podcast for 3 years. And then just recently, a couple of years ago, I decided to go to nursing school. And I recently started working as a nurse, not even in labor and delivery. So kind of a whole new realm and a whole new thing to explore. I might find my way back to the birth world eventually. But right now I'm enjoying seeing how many of the skills that we get as doulas just work for everyone in general when they're sick and when they're struggling. And yeah, it's been great, but I'm really glad to be here with you today. Thanks for having me, Care.
I bet you're really good at building team with providers, doctors, and patients because you've done it for so long. Like that's not a hard thing for you to step out and do.
It depends on the provider. I'll tell you that. But yes, in general, like that teamwork element, that's so much a part of birth work. And we get challenged as doulas. And I think even if you're not a doula or a birth worker, like you're just a person trying to exist and make things in the world and function, like we really get challenged with working together. And so there are just so many lessons in birth work. And I think in pregnancy, in birth, and postpartum, whatever side of this that if you are listening to this today, if you have given birth, if you are a birth worker or both, there's lessons for life wrapped up in every bit of it.
Yeah. And seeing the system in different, here I am interviewing you. Now that you're on a different floor than labor and delivery, is the system similar in that people really have to advocate for themselves, or is it just a different kind of vibe?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a different vibe, but I think the takeaway, without being too negative already this early in the show, yeah, you have to advocate for yourself. And the people working inside the system generally are doing their best. And it is just an impossible system to work in for everyone to get everything they need. So yeah, wherever you find yourself, if you are having a baby in our medical system, if you are sick, be your own advocate, get educated, ask questions. You're going to meet resistance because everyone is stretched too thin and there's not enough of the right kind of resources. And, but don't let it deter you because your health and your baby and your birth and whatever you're up against or whatever you're walking through is worth it.
Yeah, I just had a couple in my class last month who said her dad had been sick in the hospital for like 11 weeks and they went up to visit. And she said, we started using all of our advocacy skills we learned in birth work to slow the pace of the room and say, hey, can we have more time? And my mom would like more information about that. They got such good practice just from what they learned in birth class. And she said it really helped us walking into our birth because we had the practice and then we saw how applicable it was. And I just,
100%.
Anywhere you are in the system, the squeaky wheel.
These are skills for life. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me interview you briefly.
Of course. Well, I'm taking control of this now. And I think, in us talking before we started, I think it is so valuable. And what a lot of people want to hear is to know a little bit more about you and a little bit more about what it looks like to run this business that you've been running in all of its various forms over the past, what is it, like 15-ish years, right?
Yeah.
And now the podcast, and you're just so fascinating and such a powerhouse. But I don't think that a lot of people get to see and know you. So that's part of the goal. And I think that a big part of that is like how you got here and how you ended up in birth work. Maybe you can give us the elevator speech version of that.
Right. Yes. Notice she says elevator speech because it could be a novel. Honestly, it was an accidental thing, except when I look back, it was very synchronistic. I remember always saying, like, Oprah would have these people on her show and they found their passion in life. Like Nate's the interior designer and he found his passion. And I was like, wow, I hope someday I can find my passion. But I had no idea what it would be. And I would never think, being from conservative Mormonville, it would be vaginas and penises. That was not even a thing to think about. And honestly, after having so many miscarriages and finally getting one that stuck, it was just at the doctor's office when she told me that because I was planning on medication, like a lot of epidural, as deep and heavy as it could be. And she said, oh, you're allergic to everything in what we were going to give you as an epidural. And you're going to have to do natural. What kind of classes are you going to take? I wasn't planning on classes. Why would I need those? The doctors know everything. And that's what kind of shocked me into, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I cried for 2 weeks and found hypnobirthing, practiced, did all the things. I was the poster child for how that can work for you. And it reset everything. I had a 6-hour labor at a birth center. I'd actually left the hospital system, which never did I ever think that I would need to, or why would I want to. And the first thing I remember after the baby came out was this rush of, oh my gosh, we've been lied to. Like nobody tells us what we're capable of and who we really are. Because I never thought, I don't know what I thought birth was. I mean, it's literally giving birth to a human. Like, I don't know why I thought it was just it's just something we do, until the power of it hit me. And that I just knew I wouldn't be able to shut up about it. So that was my pivot, my train track switch. And I didn't really know how that would work and look. And here it is. It just showed up, and I don't think it'll ever stop. It just gets bigger and deeper.
You couldn't escape this. This is your birthright. You couldn't escape this if you tried, I think.
Right. I love vaginas. I love penises. Yeah, I don't know. That's just where it has landed for me. So
it's really powerful. I don't know if everybody who's listening knows your whole background, your story. You started off as a doula shortly after your daughter Finn was born, and that quickly transitioned to you teaching hypnobirthing, right? And
it was actually a week apart. I got trained as a doula, and then the next week I went and got trained and certified in hypnobirthing. And then I started teaching 2 weeks after that. So it was a little fast. Because I'm an Aries. You just do it.
You go for it.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to fail. Okay, well, I'm going to fail big then. I don't even think that's a thing. I just go for it. So I'm scared shitless when I do it, but whatever.
Yeah, there's been so many things. I've known you 10-ish years, I think, and seen a lot of this incredible progression. And there are so many things, correct me if I'm wrong, but that when you want to take the next step into the next version of whatever you're doing, the next kind of class or the podcast or starting the birth education center or whatever it was, that's the path is not laid out for any of this. It is, you have to lay the path, and that's so scary. And like, how do you do it scared? Where do you find that?
One of the very first quote unquote self-help books I ever read was Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, Excuses Be Gone, which is one of the required reading books for the doula program, because in his book, he dismantles all of our beliefs about ourselves, what we've adopted from other people, and what we've made our truth, even though it might not have been truth, it was someone else's truth. And one of the things that really stuck with me is that you can always find somebody who's done it. So for you to say, oh, I can't. Oh, there's no way. There's someone else who's done it. Or I can't as a single mom because it's too hard and I don't have childcare. Someone's done it. There's never an excuse not to at least try. And I found that if you put yourself out there, I personally ask angels and my guides, here's what I'm needing right as I go to sleep. I trust that you're taking care of it. I was brought up from a young age that if you don't give angels something to do, they have no errands to run for you. So I put them to work. They are overworked, I'm sure underpaid. They'll make me pay that someday. But I just ask for a lot of help on the other side. I have a lot of help on this side, and I feel like birth work is so sacred and it's such a big plan and thing that I don't even understand. But whatever my piece is, I just have to ask and the doors will open. And sometimes they do, and sometimes my idea goes, it's this way, and then it's nope, every door is shut. And I know enough now that once the first door opens, it'll just start to click like a domino effect. And if I just keep getting door after door of no, that just means not yet to me. It's, oh, maybe I'm supposed to prepare for that, but it's not right now. And then I look for, just like you said on the episode you were on, what's the next best step? What's the next best step to do? Don't be overwhelmed by what's coming, because if you get overwhelmed by it, you won't do anything, right? And I've been in those situations too, where I'm just stuck and I can't seem to get out of it. And now it's just, what's the next best step? And I ask for help, and then it figures itself out if it's right. If it's not, then I pivot.
Yeah, you mentioned help on this side and the other side. And I think community is such a huge part of that. And this is so important for birth workers, but also for families, for moms, for parents. This world can be so isolating. It's very easy to be isolated. And so tell us a little bit about the community aspect, like the kind of support you have, but just the vital role that has played in you getting to where you are today.
I know where I learned how to build community was growing up Mormon. There was always somebody to help, somebody to bring meals to, somebody that was sick. It's such a church of service. And even though I'm not a member anymore, it taught me how to love thy neighbor, serve thy neighbor, and figure things out. So when there was a big project, everybody pitched in. There was no competition. It was not who's going to look the best. And that helped me to literally build a surrounding of doulas, a surrounding of birth workers and educators, and because I don't believe in competition. Switch into parenting, you've got to raise your kids with other people. It is so isolating. We need help. We need support. And you can find like-minded people. There are some people that are too crunchy hippie. There's some people that are just too staunch with rules or something, and it's not your vibe. But if you put your vibe out there and you authentically know who you are, those are the people you will attract. And we can't raise these kids alone. And I know that from raising two of mine by myself. While, yes, I had the title of single or independent mom, my community stepped forward over and over to help. And likewise, I do that with others. Like, it's just how it works. And I think we're fooling ourselves if we think, oh, my family will come into town and they'll help for a little bit and I'll be okay. You need friends. You need community support. We have military bases here. There's community support on those bases that all of us could learn from, because they've got the Facebook groups, they've got clothing swap groups. They just have such a good network, and we need the exact same thing. And we have it. We just need to learn how to tap into it. But there's meetup groups and park groups and all that kind of stuff. And same with doulas. Like attracts like. And we need to be finding the backup and the support just for our mental well-being, as well as for our families when we're going to miss a birth or we're sick and we need some help with our kids or whatever. Just our world in general has lost community because we've split families apart. Everybody works in different places. Everyone's on different pay scales. And we need to find that sense of community to move forward. And I found that in my business. With all of our businesses, we grow together when we work together. And everyone can stay isolated and feel anxious and all that, or we can start having doula circles and start working on our shit. And that's how we move forward. That's how we gain more parents to help. And that's how parents, by us modeling that, can model that for themselves. So birth work is way more than just, I was at a birth and I saw a baby be born. It's so much deeper than that. And not only from the money aspect, but building a business aspect, but the community aspect is number one, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's so daunting to do something this big. Well, especially just the aspect of being on call all the time is it's just heavy. I don't know that burden is the right word. It can feel like a burden if you don't have support, certainly. And it's a huge responsibility. And I always when I'm talking to new doulas or people considering it, like it's really something you need to think carefully about because you are just available like all the time or
Yeah.
whenever, if you have a good team or a good backup, or you can have and you need to have planned time off to shut down and be present with what you're doing and all of that. But it asks a lot of us, and it's impossible to do alone. It's impossible to do without good backup support. And I think the thing that is so important about community is when you are new at this, or when you are new at anything, right? A new parent in a new job, none of us know what we're doing, at least some of the time, right? Everybody is just like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, or you question yourself. And I know as a new doula, I felt that a lot, but something that somebody told me early, and I became a doula when I was like 23. I look back and it's
So
just
young.
hilarious. No business. A childless 23-year-old, like who would trust me? I don't know. It worked out somehow. But I had some wonderful mentors, of which you were one. And somebody early on told me that you are not responsible for knowing the answers to every question, to knowing what every client asks, or what if this happens, or what if that. You are responsible for learning and for always gathering information and experience and integrating that all into your brain and your practice. But it's okay not to know. And what you do is say, oh, you know what? I'm not sure, but I have a really great network of people and I know somebody's going to know the answer. Or I'm not sure, but this person does know. Or so we do not have to be everything for everyone as a doula, as a parent, as a partner, whatever. But knowing what resources you have available and being an active part of building up the resources in your community, like you were saying, Carol, being one of the people that shows up when other people are in need or answers the call, is how we do this, and is I think how we do it without all ending up, in a ball crying in the corner of the room. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes we can do that, but like maybe not every day.
I was going to say, don't slight my ball crying moments because I need those. And I think in our old tribes, in our old villages, there was a shoemaker. There was a person that made the best bread. There was everyone had their part. And there was the midwife that knew all the potions and how to keep people well. And there was a butcher. Like everybody had some kind of role of community. We all have that role, whether we've discovered what it is or not, or our gifts or not. And I always ask, what's your friend group like? What are you for those friends? Are you the one that takes all the time? Or are you the one that everybody comes to all the time? Who are you in your friend group? How can you do that with your parenting? If you have good communal groups, everybody is giving to each other equally. And then when somebody needs a little bit more, people step in and vice versa. It's critically important for parents. And I can't stress it enough to get that set up in pregnancy way before the baby comes, because it's way less lonely and it helps the baby get a better start because the parents are resourced, and doulas. I think when we set up our own success with self-care, which we're so not good at, I'm getting way better than I was, but we're still not good at it. And having our own support, we model that for them. We help them figure it out because we have a good resource list to get them started.
Yeah. Speaking of self-care, that I think is hard for a lot of us. I did not do a good job at it at first. And it's because I didn't feel like I needed it. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if that resonates with you or anybody, but it's like you can go for a long time and like, I'm fine. I don't need a time. I don't need a break. I don't need to whatever. Like, I'm so excited about this, or I have plenty of energy. And then by the time that I realize I need help, like I'm pretty far beyond where I actually needed help, when I actually needed to rest. And then I'm just like angry. And well, before I keep talking, bogarting your show here, what for you, after you've been doing this as a single mom, a business owner for 15 years, what are a few like pivotal parts of self-care or just being able to have longevity in this career?
Well, I think I have a special circumstance because I am also a full-time caregiver. Finley is a quadriplegic and she doesn't walk, she doesn't talk. So even communicating with her is heavy and finding people to help me with her is heavy. So in the old days, it would have been a vacation once or twice a year. Now it would cost me $5,000 to leave her for a week. Like it's not in the cards. So I do meditation. I walk every day. I make sure I live right by the bay so I can be by that water every day. I do not take that for granted at all. when I have respite care on a weekend, there's two things that I do. One, I go up to my friend's mom's horse ranch and I immerse myself in horse poop and feeding horses carrots and walking them around and smelling. It's like, I can't even tell you going into a different kind of work where I don't have to think about what I work for every day is a total respite. And her mom builds fires every night, and it's just, there are not words. There are not words. And another thing that I do and have done for probably the past 4 years, which a lot of people don't know, is I do medicine journeys. And those have been a reset because, one, I'm in community and I'm doing it in Los Angeles, so they don't really know me and what I do here. So that is a break in and of itself because since I'm such a caretaker, I jump into healing very quickly in groups, and I don't have to do that when I'm there. I'm literally not allowed to be on call when I'm there, and my phone's off, and it's very peaceful. And I've gained a lot through Peruvian medicine and understanding myself more. There have been a few journeys and these are, you guys, when people talk about psychedelics, it is such an off-topic policy and was not part of my religion growing up, right? It was against my religion, actually. And what I've gained from that after I was open to it is an understanding that we are all in this together and that love is our highest goal. And how can we connect and serve one another on a deeper level? It's changed everything for me. And while I had a basic understanding of those understandings are so deep in my system now. And I even recently I hadn't talked to my mom in 11 years over some deep controversial issues. And we did talk very briefly, probably 3 months ago. And I actually got to share one of those journeys with her that some big pieces came in about our relationship. And she was actually open to it. And there was a lot of healing that came through those conversations about her getting to know me as an adult, as an autonomous person, because I wasn't that when we were in a mother-daughter relationship. And it just shifted a lot of things about growth, understanding, and connecting with people and accepting them for who they are in the different phases of their life, because we all change. And I know that's one of the things with birth work. Sometimes you start losing friends because they can't relate to what you're into because it's so, oh my gosh, guess what happened at this birth? And they're like, ugh. It's weird for them. And all we want to talk about and relive with our birth worker friends is, and this lesson I learned, and this lesson I learned, because it is such a big, sacred, bigger piece. I don't know of the puzzle. I don't know how to explain it. And coming into parenthood, you start to tap into that, which is why a lot of people switch into birth work and want to teach it or do something with it. And finding your people comes from getting to know who you are authentically. And I think that's one of my biggest self-care tips is find something that drives your passion. What makes you just feel so good? And that can be laying in the grass. That can be having a cup of coffee with a friend, but it's what makes you light up. And you're right, when we don't take advantage of that, it's very hard for me to take advantage of that because I'm with Finley so much, but I don't take it for granted. I don't know. I used to quilt. I used to craft. I used to do all sorts of stuff. It's shifted a lot. I just hang out with my dogs.
Yeah, with the quilt and with the mushrooms.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, it's just an even trade.
Yeah, sure. That's the same. No, I think the takeaway is for those of you that will resonate with some people, and it won't with other people as far as the medicine journey part. But the thing that I think can resonate with all of us is that we need to find ways to care for our soft inner soul, the thing that fire within us, because it is just so easily extinguished by the pressures of this world. And I think that it also doesn't have to be complicated, right? The walk, the laying in the grass. I think sometimes people, especially moms or women, I don't know, get this message that's just self-care. It'll have your cup of tea and you'll feel better. And no, it doesn't have to rejuvenate every part of you. The cup of coffee cannot hold that much weight on its shoulders, right? But it's the little things that we have to do to protect ourselves day by day. And then in big ways, the boundaries, especially as birth workers, just the practical thing that helped me was starting to communicate with my clients in our prenatal meetings of when they could reach out to me with non-urgent, non-labor questions and or contacts, because a lot of people don't understand your phone can never be off. And so when somebody remembers at 10:30 p.m. a question about like diaper cream or like hemorrhoid ointment that they wanted to shoot my way, and then they send it and I'm like jolted from the sleep that I'm barely hanging on to, you know what I mean? Like,
nobody understands that if a text comes through at 2 a.m., I literally think someone had a baby because I'm on call for placentas. And so I'm wide awake, or it's a phone call, and then it wakes Finley up. And then we're like, awesome.
Yeah. Everyone's screaming.
You don't turn off in birth work. Just like in parenting, I think you don't turn off the first 5 or 6 months. It gets better. Birth work never turns off. So self-care, it's essential. And I wish I had started earlier with the self-care, because just like you, I was so excited. I totally could have burned myself out if I hadn't had some good mentors saying, ooh, you need to slow down a little bit. You need to take one less birth a month. Maybe you should, and I thought, no, I'm good. And I realized, oh, I'm kind of running from my regular life to fill it with other things so that I don't have to think about my regular life, because my regular life's pretty hard. So good mentors make a huge difference in self-care.
Yeah. And I love what you just said, because I think like we as birth workers have to look at, okay, why am I doing this? What am I getting from this? And am I trying to show up for these people in a way that is led by my ego or my need to distract or fill some hole in myself? Or am I really going in with the intention to show up for this family and this baby as they need me now, without an agenda, I think a lot of us have a lot of frustrations with the modern medical system and the pressures that people get when you walk into the hospital to have a baby. And am I bringing that rage fight energy in with me? Or am I trying to walk in fresh, like, okay, what do these people need right now? And let me set aside everything else.
If you're doing self-care, you're satisfied. You're not longing for anything, right? So you have the excess coming over your cup that you can be present in those moments, because those families are hiring you for that. And if you're like, oh, I'm so good, I've got 3 births this month and I've got 4 in the books for next month, and that's the energy that you're coming with, it's different because it's a hustle. And while there is a bit of hustle because things get canceled because of births and you have to shift things around, you put your family on the back burner because this is so much more important, you lose your family. So there has to be that balance of staying satisfied and staying in peace, and then extending that outward to those that we serve.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very fluid thing, or you have to be open to it changing and the way that you show up in your business changing, and building a partnership with other doulas, or maybe taking a step back for a brief time. Like, if you want to do this work, one of the great things about it is that you get to steer the ship, and you can determine, like, once you're in, you got to show up for it. If you have committed to these families, that's something that is just so important. And over the years, here and there, when I've seen doulas be flaky, or I'm just like, it blows my mind. It makes me furious.
Yeah, it's hard because we have to pick up the pieces for that, because these families weren't planning on that. So it is. Once you commit, you're committed. So don't overcommit.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I feel like I cried after births for a few years because I was just so tired. I was doing too much. And it took me longer than it should have to learn how to dial that back. And part of finding that balance for some people are career changes or doing this in a different realm. And I know we have plenty of friends who've become midwives, and you just never know where you're going to end up with this work. It's really, I think, a beautiful, powerful thing.
Yeah. And I think that's what I've loved about moving from full-time doula and part-time educator into full-time educating is I affect more people in a shorter amount of time and can still be there as a buffer. I'll get a text from a random labor or whatever and still help them find doulas and help them have support and be their first in line after postpartum where they need a connection in community. There's always work for you in birth work. So if you feel like I really want to be a doula, but I've got these kids and I can't, there's something for you to do. There's so much support you can do.
Yeah. I think this leads into a really good question, which is, For people that are like, is it too late for me to get started? Where do I begin? Or even just the more practical, like business aspects of this? Because I know, like I said, I was so young and I never wanted to be a business owner. Like that was not on my list, but it comes along with this and you want to do it well to protect yourself and to set yourself up for success. Maybe tell us a little bit about that for people who are trying to get started.
Well, you're never too old. I have everything that everyone said, oh my gosh, you're like 50. How do you know how to do that? I'm like, because we're not stupid. We can still keep learning.
Has anyone,
right?
be honest, has anyone been like, you're 50, you don't know how to do that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times they're shocked. Like, how you edit those videos? How do you know that? I'm like, you have a TikTok? I'm like, yeah, you just do it. And when people say, am I too old to do this? There are so many doulas that they have waited until their career is over, their kids are raised, and then they become a doula. They're having grandkids and they're coming into doula work and they know how to set up a business. No, they don't. They figure it out. And I think that's the part I love about having your own business is the figuring out part. And there's always someone to help you. And there's always groundwork stuff that you do first. And there's not sometimes a lot covered in doula trainings. And I get that. And people are intimidated, but you can always learn it. And you learn from somebody who's already done it. Like I want to show you the stuff so that you don't have to make all the mistakes I did. Right. And when we first came into birth work, all I could see was I need an education center. I want to have all these classes so that it's a one-stop shop. And how do we get the doulas involved and whatever? That was such a big piece when I was a brand new doula and I barely knew the anatomy yet. But I saw what was ahead. And then it was like, okay, who do I ask? And I had some really good mentors. How did you do this? How did you do that? I just took really good notes. And anyone can learn how to do a business and anyone can learn how to do a smart business. Starts with good boundaries. And that's the trickiest part because we're all people pleasers and we've all just been giving our whole lives. We come in the spirit of, let me just give them everything I have. But we have to understand that the boundaries are to protect us so that we can give better. And figuring that out, every business has hours, boundaries, rules that they go by, refund policies, and it's the same with us. So it's just a matter of learning it and not feeling overwhelmed by it, getting mentoring early on, and not being afraid to fail. You're going to fail if you don't start it.
Yep. Like, and get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's just uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable. I love that,
to do new stuff. Yeah, and it's okay to not be good at. Why would you know how to do this? Of course you don't know. I tell myself that every day when I'm at work, right? Like, why would I know how to do this? I hate when I don't know how to do something. I really hate it. But we get to learn to be gentle with ourselves. If that is maybe not everybody struggles with that, but be gentle with yourself.
All struggle. We all struggle with that. No compassion for ourselves.
Yeah. Patient but diligent and just get into action.
If we were a kid doing this, how would we support that kid? Oh, it's really, but you can do it. And here's the tool. And we would support. Why wouldn't we want that same support for ourselves? And why wouldn't we give ourselves compassion? Those kids make 25,000 mistakes before they get it right. And we just keep saying, you're doing a good job. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. We need to be turning the tables and saying that to ourselves, especially as new parents, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know what we're doing. We think we do. We read a book. We took a class. We'd have no flipping clue. This kid has its own personality and its own time schedule, and it changes daily. And that's doula work is the same way. Educator work is the same way. It's always changing. You're always meeting new people, and there's always new challenges, whether it's inflation, whether it's everything's COVID related. Now we're at home and we can't be in person. Like there's always something, and getting to go with the flow and know that you're always supported, because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's always going to work out. Always.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it's meant to be, it will come together, and we have to do the work and we have to take the action and be diligent. But I love what you said earlier about like when the one door opens and if the others start clicking, listen to that and follow that path. And that's how my entry into birth work was too. Like I could not have planned it. I couldn't have forced it. It wouldn't have worked, and it somehow did. And that's, look for where the water flows.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the trickiest part, because there have been doors like this podcast. It started to open again and I was like, whoa, nope. And I turned the other way and let's do something else, distraction. And it kept popping up, and I was like, no, I'm not, too much on my plate. My brain's not working. I can't do that. At least right now. I'll do it later. I kept thinking I'll just push it off. And then it was just click, click. And I was like, oh, this is the train. I got to get on the train. So you do it scared. That's what you do. And you do it thinking, I hope it works. And if it doesn't, whatever, if it doesn't, then you do something different. Yeah. Like, so what? In 50 years, you guys aren't even going to remember I was alive. So does it matter? No.
That's the other thing. There's some piece to that. And this is like kind of morbid, but true. But it's basically nothing matters, you guys. Like, all the little stuff we do day to day and the way that we get to connect and love and show up in life is so important. And then, like, nothing matters. Like, do
nothing
your best.
Matters.
And just, who cares?
Yep. I know. We get so wrapped up in am I leaving a legacy, or am I doing this, or how will my kids be proud of me, or am I, and it doesn't matter. Are you spending your time in a rewarding way that feels good to you, that helps others, that gives back somehow, whether it's just to you or to others or your dog? If it's building love and trust and beauty with people, that's what matters, because you are not promised 10 minutes from now. Like, you're just not. So
no.
It really doesn't matter. You have to let the failure part go and just live big. Like, think of Texas hair. The bigger, the better. Just do it. Just do it. I would do good in Texas. I would have big hair. I would.
You would, yeah. When my hair isn't so greasy, it's pretty big too. But really got it matted down today for you. Well, are there any last closing remarks or things that you want parents, new doulas, new birth workers to know, either about you or just nuggets of wisdom to take away?
I think mainly for parents, they come in really scared because, first off, they don't think they need education. And then they get worried, and the worry is what kind of kicks them in usually. And the only way you're not going to be scared is if you get educated and do something different. Because what's happening in your world right now is anxiety, nervousness, the thought that you can't do it, whether it's medicated or not medicated. Like, how am I even going to be a parent? The way you get to a different place is if you change things up. You get support, you get educated, you see what your options are. The medical system isn't as threatening to you when you have options and when you understand really that you have all the power. I don't think we have enough autonomy built into us anymore, and that has to be rediscovered. We have to learn to follow our intuition. We have to realize that we actually have intuition because we've masked it for so long by pleasing everybody else and doing what everybody else wanted us to do. So I think that's one of the reasons that we started the podcast, is to get the word out earlier that there's things to prepare for ahead of time that are really going to benefit you and the baby and make you a better parent. And part of that is discovering who you are on a deeper level, how you will move forward through problems and things that don't go your way, because that's parenting. And you learn that early in a birth class. And I want you early. Everybody, every birth educator wants you early because you build community that way. It's different. And I think same for doulas. You're scared, you're nervous, you're anxious. Find community. Don't be scared of failing. Go for it. There's plenty of people to help you, and there's plenty of people who've done it before you that want to help you. I think we shouldn't have to think that we have to make every mistake ourselves because we're too proud to ask for help, or we know everything, so we're just going to forge ahead and do it, and then afterwards go, oh my gosh, I wish I'd only known. You just have to ask. And it's easy to find that now with social media. Start liking and following people that resonate with you. See what they're doing. Reach out to them. There's always somebody there to mentor and help you. I don't think as humans we ask for enough help. We just stay stuck. And there's no reason to stay stuck.
A lot of freedom lies on the other side of walking through the discomfort and asking for help. And it can mean a better life for you and your baby and your family.
Yeah, I'm about discomfort, man. Can I tell you a story?
Of course.
I have to tell you a brief story about discomfort. Some of you don't know that I'm a professional cuddler, which is random, but yes, that's where I learned all my boundaries. And at I think it was my first cuddle event, which I was uncomfortable anyways going, what is this? Am I that desperate that I need strangers to hold me? Like, I didn't know what I was in for. And she asked me, what are you most nervous about? Because I wanted to try it because I'm like, I want to be able to do this. Going on a big roller coaster, right? You're like, oh, that's pretty daunting. I'm going to do it. But this was daunting in a very emotional way for me to open myself up to strangers like that. And the facilitator said, what are you worried about? And I said, rejection. Like this is like the most awkward, weirdest thing ever. And she said, oh, that's what you're worried about. Why don't you just make sure that you tell everybody to reject you right off the bat? So everything you ask for is going to be a no. And I was like, okay, that's even more awkward. Like, how do you do that? And she said, you just use your words. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a toddler all of a sudden. And she said, it's really easy to say, hey, tonight, no matter what I ask for, I would really appreciate you telling me no and taking care of yourself so that I get rejected a lot. And I was like, I don't even know if I can form those words. That took so much energy for me to think how I was even going to phrase it. I stumbled over it. It was super awkward. And every single activity that we had, they were like, no, but thank you for asking. And I was like, thank you. And I'd go to the next thing and I was sick to my stomach. I'm sure I was flushed. I was nervous. And by the 10th, no, thank you, and me feeling like I am such a loser, I was like, but it's not killing me. And then it became, okay, let's see what's that like on the next one. And so then it got easier and I was like, oh my gosh, I just taught myself one of the biggest lessons that I probably teach in birth all the time. Go for it. You have nothing to lose. Like you still have to prepare for whatever you want or you're not going to get there. So just go for it anyway. And I thought, oh my gosh, but I learned it on a different level of emotional vulnerability, anxiousness, physically feeling sick, desperate, needy, all the things. And it shifted everything for me because discomfort will not kill you. It makes you stronger, but it won't kill you. So
even when you want to be dead because you're so uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh.
Kill you, right?
And honestly, I don't think I've ever been as uncomfortable as that situation. And everything else has been like, it's a little uncomfortable. That was horrific for me. So I feel like if I can get through that, I can get through anything. And I think people think, I think people think that with their birth experiences. Sometimes they're like, dude, if I could do that, whatever, tell me no, let me see what I can do. And it's just a different level of understanding of where your edge is. If you can feel those edges out and keep pushing them, you only get bigger because your energy is superhuman and it's way bigger than you think it is. And finding those edges and expanding them only makes you better. It gives you more confidence. Super sexy.
Yes. It's so powerful. And I think like a term that keeps coming to mind and it's like applicable here, but fail forward is
oh, so good.
You didn't fail when you were getting rejected the things that we do as parents or as birth workers that don't work out, it's not necessarily a failure, but if you can take that energy and instead of letting it level you and take you out and gather it and okay, what's next? What's the next indicated step? It's resilience, right? I think maybe the most underrated, but most important character asset or piece of us. And the great thing is that it is buildable. I know, at least being a doula, and it sounds maybe funny for people who don't do it, but that really taught me resilience, even just physically. You can stay awake for a lot longer than you think you can.
Oh my gosh, can you ever? You can do hip squeezes for 36 hours straight. You didn't think you could.
It doesn't feel good. You don't want to. It's a long time, but you can. And you learn your limits that way. And I'm working as a nurse right now. I'm working days, but I'm about to switch over to nights. And I already know it's a bummer. I already know. And all the people I'm starting with who have never worked nights are like, oh my God, I don't know how it's going to be. And I'm like, I know how it's going to be. It's not good. We're not. Just prepare. It's going to be fine though. Get a blackout curtain.
It's so funny because you've been there, done that.
Yeah. And at least I know when these shifts are over, right? There's pros and cons to everything.
Oh my gosh, your 12-hour shift. Yeah, you're not on call as much, but you know what it feels like.
Yeah. So I think whatever is holding you back, whether it's you are a pregnant person, like wanting to prepare for your baby's birth, a parent or a birth worker, take the next step, be brave, because the worst case scenario is you're going to learn something and you're going to foster resilience that you didn't have before. That will only serve to make you better. And if that's the worst case scenario, like, why not? You know?
And I think that's the beautiful part about building community around you, because if you're all working with that same mindset of, oh, you guys, I had this huge fail. Don't ever do this. And then someone else says, ooh, have you tried to tweak this? Because if we're all of the mindset, whether it's parenting or birth work, of working together and figuring it out together, it's so much easier. Everybody has a hack. And the community is the bottom line. Where are you creating community to figure out how you can be better? And I think that's one of the things that I've loved about doula work is when we're all trained the same, we work the same, we're all in birth work, but we're doing it together. So everybody has some help with something else and another resource because we're so networked. Just like you said, in the middle of the night when you don't know what to do, you'll see a little bat call on one of the support groups that says, I don't know, I've done everything, what? And everyone goes, oh, have you tried? And it's because we're so overtired sometimes, we're in it and we need somebody on the outside to be like, I can help with this. It's the same with parenting. There's one parent that you could call in the middle of the night and say, my kid has a fever, I don't know what to do. And they're going to have an answer for you. Like, community is everything. I just can't stress that enough.
We are not alone, and we're so lucky.
Well, I want to thank you, Allie, for coming in today. Every time I get questions about who I am, what I do, how I started, all of that, I never know what to say because everyone has big, intricate stories, right? And the important parts sometimes get lost in the big story. And that's one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to lose anybody's story, but I want to get their nitty-gritty details. So I'm hoping we got some of those today.
I think we did. I want people just knowing you like I know you and for how long I've known you. I think, of course, you have so much to give and that you do give to our community. But when people can really know you on a deeper level, it's just so valuable and so meaningful. So I'm really glad that you're proud of you for being vulnerable and sharing in this big way and doing this big new thing. A podcast is a big undertaking that is incredibly time consuming. So no, I don't have to tell you.
Incredibly time consuming. And obviously, because you guys had done it, I was like, okay, if Allie and Carly can do it, I can figure it out. And the extra layer of adding video to it has kicked my behind, I will say, because that is a whole other level of editing. But it's pushed me, it stretched me, and I'm loving the editing part, actually, when I thought I was going to hate it. So it does get better. I want everybody to try something that's hard because it expands you. Whether you do a podcast and you get 3 episodes done, you did 3 episodes more than you would have. Like, fail forward is key. Fail forward. So good at. Thank you, Allie. We'll see you guys next week.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.